Well, in the past 5 years, I've tried to create a Chicha empire, which there was not that much competition, so it's been good. I mean, I went to Peru, came back with a lot of music that I didn't know and fell in love with, and decided that I wanted to put out a compilation of the music because it should be better known. I first went to a couple of record labels, see if they wanted to put it out, and they were very interested, and they never wrote back to me. So eventually I decided that I was going to do it myself, which I did not realize would take up a lot of my time and energy and resources for the next few years. But I ended up putting out a compilation of the music called The Roots of Chicha about exactly 3 years ago, which apparently did fairly well. A lot of people really liked the music and were surprised that they'd never heard it, as I'd been surprised when I first heard it. So that was how I first started working with Chicha, by putting out a compilation. I just put out a second compilation, also called The Roots of Chicha, Volume 2, this week. And I put out all the records, another one by one of my favorite bands of the time, one of the most famous ones from the Amazon, called Combo. In the meantime, I also started playing the music because, I mean, really for fun, and it started as a very fun project with my friends, playing music that we thought was really good, and it's always the best way to understand music is to play it. And we had a gig at a club that I happen to own, so it makes it very easy to book any kind of esoteric things. And we had a tremendous amount of fun playing the music. People really liked it. So we just continued, and little by little it very organically became a band, which had to be named and had to have a record. And we ended up doing a lot of playing around the US, and it's taken over my life in ways that I was not expecting. Chicha is Peruvian music. I'm a Frenchman living in New York. It's somewhat absurd, but it's become my life. I also got really interested in a musician from Iquitos named Ranil, actually named Raúl Gerena is his real name. He's one of the pioneers of Amazonian cumbia in the Amazon, in Iquitos. He started releasing records in the 70s, and I put out one of his songs on the new compilation and managed to have him play in Berlin with us last summer, and really got to be pretty friendly with him, and he's sort of a fascinating character. So I went to visit him in Iquitos about a month ago and started doing a documentary on his life, on his and on his city, and on his neighborhood of Belén, which is the indigenous working class neighborhood of Iquitos. And so that's a completely new endeavor. I think it's a great way to talk about the culture, about the musical culture as well as the social culture, to just have the portrait of one man who has had a very kind of crazy life. He's had two different musical careers. He started as a criollo musician. He was a teacher in the jungle for 7 years, has started his own radio station in Belén, completely low wattage, very idiosyncratic affair, has a TV station which has no money at all, so he ends up playing bootleg versions of a Rambo on the air. And he's also an activist and now a politician. He's run for mayor, has not won yet, but he's a very popular guy. He's a sort of, to me, he represents Iquitos in all its sort of craziness and fascinating quirkiness and beautiful music.
So Ranil is one of the original Chicha musicians that was on one of the compilations, and are there other bands from that era which we're talking about, like the 60s and 70s, that are still playing in Peru?
There's not very many that are still playing. Some of the bands that are still playing, such as Los Mirlos, are still playing, but there are, I think, there's three original members in that band, and they've had to adapt to the taste of the day, which means, I mean, they play the old hits, but it's modernized in a way that does not necessarily work as well as it used to. It's the power of the marketplace and having to feed your family. There are two different versions of Combo playing right now in Peru. Same thing. Some of it is good, some of it is not as good. Los Cuemblers from Iquitos are still playing, and I didn't know that until I went there and actually talked to them. They're essentially a local band that plays for fun. outside of their professional musicians' jobs. I mean, they play in current cumbia bands that are much more like techno or I mean, they're professional musicians, but they keep that band as a fun band. It's a family band. It's all brothers playing together. It's a wonderful people. Had a great time with them there.
I mean, originally, like Chicha now, the place that it has in like Peruvian music scene now is different from the one it had in the beginning, like in the 60s.
It's very different.
Because back then,
in the 60s, when it first started, it was actually very popular for the first couple of years. It was one of the novelty music at the time, along with the first salsa, the boogaloo, which was popular, Cuban music, etc., and which it incorporated all of those elements into the music. Little by little, starting in the mid-70s or so, the music became more popular in that it had a wider audience, but that audience came mostly from the ghettos of Lima, from the pueblos jóvenes. And so as a result, the music was completely ignored. It was, I mean, if you're a middle-class educated person, you would think of it as underground music, which of course is listened to by 2 million people, but it's still music that is not represented at all in the official culture. In the past 5 years, things have changed some. I mean, the fact that interested in the music and that they are Western DJs and writers and all sort of more official, people that are not from the culture, not from within the culture, that are interested in the music, gave it a sort of a spotlight. And in the past 3 years, there's new Chicha bands that are emerging, young bands that are playing the music, that are incorporating the music in electronic, in rock, in hip hop even. So there's a big revalorization of the music that's taking place.
and just to go back a little bit to Chicha Libre, to your band, I mean, Chicha has always been a very syncretic music. So in a way, you feel like you're continuing that. You have a kind of freedom to adapt it as you feel.
Absolutely. I mean, that's why we call the band Chicha Libre to begin with, because there's the freestyle aspect of it, or we can do anything we want to the music, because that what we take from the music more than just aping a chord structure is the process of making that music, which means being entitled to use absolutely anything that is relevant to your musical environment. And that's what those guys were doing back then. I think that's what was really, really special about it.